end up in everyone doing this, despite the fact that it's illegal. And what's so sad about this is that the gap between the constituents on the one hand and the government on the other hand is the fact that people don't believe in these laws. And what's the response? Well, the response is generally in the European Union and in Sweden too, to some extent, that we will make the laws even harsher. So the gap will cause the differences in opinion that causes this gap is going to make it actually does make politicians respond in a way that widens the gap even further, and that's what I mean with the negative spiral that I think we're in now. And so what do we do to break this spiral? I belong to the Swedish Conservative Party. I generally don't prefer revolution as a tool for changing things, but I do think that we eventually will have to decriminalize the behavior of copying and sharing copyrighted material for non-commercial purposes.
Good. Rasmus, please.
All right. It's a funny question. I've been thinking about it. Copyright law has to be reformed or revolutioned. Maybe it should just be relativized or ignored, maybe. The thing is that, as Carl said, we are in a spiral. It is almost not the point about discussing about like the state of copyright today, because the state is a state of heavy escalation, new and harder laws being proposed all the time. At the same time, maybe what's most important is to just realize that copyright is, to a large extent, already undermined. It's not functioning on many fields. Copies are being made. Files have already been downloaded and are circulating freely. And the most important of all, copyright is not the kind of fundament for all kinds of cultural activities, as it's commonly described. And I think the role we see for ourselves as a loose group called the Pirate Bureau is, to a large extent, one of not pursuing a set of fixed principles, but being an ongoing conversation, trying to not so much give answers, but to change the questions. From early on, we tried to get away from the focus on like a conflict between consumers and artists, because that's a very, very abstracted picture, which is not really have any ground in reality. We've been trying to point out the many ambiguities within copyright law, within the definition of what an artistic work is, what a copy is, and that it's with any new form of cultural expression or any new media technology, there is not one simple answer what copyright should do. It's always built on metaphors referring to previous orders. And as I said, we try to change the questions and change the priorities, and to somehow start, by means of practical experimentation, start thinking beyond copyright or post-copyright, after copyright.
Good. And then over to Peter.
Yeah. The problem with speaking right after Rasmus is that we have the same opinion about most of these things, I think. So I don't want to just repeat what he said, but one of the most important things that we have done is that we actually did do, as Rasmus suggested, that we ignored copyright. Copyright is a problem today, and I don't see that we could change it. We just have to ignore it, and we did that, and most people do it, so it's already ignored.
You would like to change it, but you think that it's not possible?
It's probably possible, but it's not that interesting.
Okay, then we have a... Yeah.
Now you can talk about this.
Ricard is not going to be of the same opinion.
All right. Copyright should be reformed. Copyright should be revolutionized. No, copyright law should be drop-kicked because it has come head-to-head with what we regard as fundamental civil liberties. The right to postal secrecy, the messenger immunity, the right for a reporter to protect their sources are under attack from the copyright industry. And this is very, very serious from a democratic standpoint. This goes way beyond what we regard the mere cultural production. So when you look at it and see that it's illegal for me to send a piece of music and email to you guys. If we are in a video chat and I draw a video clip onto that window, that would be an illegal act today. In order to enforce copyright as it stands, that means that my private communication must be monitored. And this is exactly what the copyright lobby is fighting for. They are trying to end postal secret as we know it. They are trying to end the messenger immunity as we know it. These are principles that date back to the Roman Empire that are now being threatened because an industry refuses to accept that there is a fundamental shift going on. And I find it interesting that the Pirate Bureau, or Bureau of Piracy, the Pirate Bay, and us are here today, because if you look at previous shifts, you can see a very clear pattern. These shifts, in terms of generational shifts in democracy, in administration, in how laws are perceived, in the common perception of what's right and wrong, happen about every 40 years. And they're huge when they happen. In the 1880s, liberals appeared on the scene. The liberals were asked, well, are you on the side of power to the state or power to the church? Because that's where you were supposed to be at that time. And they said, no, we're neither. We're actually presenting new ideas. 40 years later came socialist ideas. In the 1920s. 40 years later again, environmental movement. Green Party started to arrive. And here we are 40 years later still. And if you look at these shifts, they all follow a very distinctive pattern. First come people who openly display that the law is out of order. They, as Peter said, copyright needs to be ignored. After these people come more people who lobby for the ideas, want to change the questions, introduce new ideas, set a new mindset, sort of bring it to an academic level. And there you've got Rasmus's very, very good footwork on bringing these issues into the media, into the academic world. And the third step is that the questions are politicized. They are taken into Parliament. This was the case, just to give quick parallels, you had this pattern with the wild strikes in the worker movement. Wild strikes became labor unions, became social democratic parties. In the environmental movement, you had industrial sabotages that became Greenpeace and lobby organizations that became Green parties. And here we are today, 40 years later still. So we are part of cycles of history, the way I see it. And the problem, the fundamental problem, is that Carl Siegfried's colleagues are digital illiterates who are behaving like blind, drunken elephants, stomping about in a very fragile environment and do not understand the damage that they are making to the democratic fabric by making laws that are supposed to safeguard an old structure that does not have the value to society they pretend it has.
There were several things. Let me just follow up on that. This might be a moot point, but I just still want to take it. Sorry, John, for a moment, but I'll because as I understand it, both Fredrik and Carl then are sort of have chosen the parliamentary way, and like you explain it right now, parliamentary way of changing, and then maybe Peter and Rasmus don't believe